Hey guys, so it's officially World of Warcraft's 20th anniversary. 20 years of World of Warcraft. Um, I think we all can kind of say what it was like our first time playing. Not all of us have been playing since vanilla. I started in BC, so I've been playing close to 20 years. Not quite 20 years, but very damn near close. Um, some people might be newer. It's like, oh yeah, I started in Battle for Azeroth. And then some people might say, oh, well, I started in the best expansion ever, Shadowlands. And others might say, no, I started in the actual best expansion ever, Warlords of Draenor. Um, but no, I think the older people here started probably back vanilla Burning Crusade because we're old, we're ancient. But this is Jedi Warlock, great YouTuber when it comes to like WoW stuff. It kind of goes into places of WoW that are generally just kind of just tossed aside and ignored, and kind of gives backstories to them, in-game lore, and it's really good. Um, this was an hour ago, and why World of Warcraft is a masterpiece. Now, regardless of what you think of Blizzard as a whole, the fact is what they've managed to do with the game, what they created, yeah. And despite every year, WoW is dying, a new expansion comes out, oh, WoW is dead, a new MMO comes out, oh, that's the WoW killer. Here we are, 20 years later, still going strong. So, the people who design the zones, uh, I always give them, they're always amazing. But it's 10, this is 10 minutes. I'll probably stop and start and talk and this that. So let's just get right into it. So this is Jedi Warlock, and he's why World of Warcraft is a masterpiece.
20 years have passed since the mortal gamers banded together and entered World of Warcraft by the millions. Though expansions have come and gone, the love and appreciation for classic WoW has remained unbroken. The drums of war thunder once again. It's hard to believe that WoW turns 20 years old today. On November 23rd, 2004, the servers officially launched, and players dialed in to experience Azeroth like never before. This wasn't a top-down strategy game like previous Warcraft games. This was an immersive 3D world where players created their own heroes and went on their own adventures, meeting friends and foes aplenty. You've probably seen a lot of
Yeah, it's kind of like, gaming consoles. You go from like these 2D platformers, Mario and Zelda, and suddenly you're on this new console and it's 3D. You're like, Warcraft 1 and 3, 1 to 3, they were all like a top down. Well, not really. 3 really wasn't top down, but you get the idea. Uh, but you get this experience where it's not fully 3D. And then suddenly you're plopped into this world that but now you're controlling your own character instead of controlling, lore, heavy characters, and you're starting a journey to level and discover more about the land and about yourself, and you're talking to other people who are just like you, and all over it was crazy. Um and even though there was stuff like RuneScape and all that before this it just was different at the time. And I think that's one complaint people have, that it's like, wow, it's no longer really different. All these mechanics that they're implementing, other MMOs have had them for ages now. Like dynamic riding or dynamic flight or whatever. It's like that stuff's been in other games for ages now, and you're just now implementing it. Like, come on, guys, come on. But it was just this like huge shift in tone and gameplay, and you're no longer just clicking and moving things. No, you're the character. You're moving around. You're casting the spells. You're completing quests. and it was just like, wow, this is Azeroth. This is World of Warcraft. That's not just Warcraft anymore. It's World of Warcraft.
20th anniversary hype going on right now, and as we cross this major milestone, I'm here to offer my take. Classic World of Warcraft is a masterpiece of a video game, and I think the excitement for the new classic servers just goes to show it. But how does a game from 2004 continue to bring us together, build new memories, and offer an amazing gameplay experience 2 decades later? Let's find out. And with all that being said, let's get right into it. There are so many directions I could take to explain why Classic is a masterpiece, but while writing this video, I always found myself coming back to one thing first and foremost: the world. That might seem obvious or maybe a cop-out. I mean, it's literally in the title of the game, but it's such a critical part of what made early WoW so iconic, so atmospheric, and I'm sure like many of you, that feeling has drawn you in from day one. The variety and uniqueness of each zone plays a major role, and there's rarely a case where the environment seems repetitive or dull. There is obvious passion and dedication on display by the developers from the very beginning, and even with some reused assets from time to time, every zone has its own essence, story.
Yeah, I've said this numerous times. When it comes to the world itself, to the zones, to the design, always gorgeous. They always feel, you can go from a place like Elwyn Forest, something foresty, but then the next zone you go to is completely covered in snow, and it looks gorgeous. You have places like in Northrend, icy Northrend, covered in snow, but then you have a place like Sholazar Basin, and it's like a tropic jungle, or Grizzly Hills, this beautiful, massive trees, and Crystal Song Forest, which is still unlike anything else in this game. It is gorgeous. But then you have, from like Shadowlands, you have Ardenweald, which is beautiful. And you can clearly tell that the people design, the guys and girls behind designing the zones clearly have a passion for what they're doing, because they're always on point. Despite some people like me tired of mountains getting higher and higher and becoming more vertically disabled, you still look at the zone and like, wow, they put a lot of love and care and passion into the zone. Regardless of what you think about the story, the zone and the music accompanying that zone are always on point, and that's what I think keeps drawing people in. Even if you're a person who's just tired of the questing experience, you always find yourself exploring these zones. You always find yourself just immersed in these zones because of how beautiful they are. So when it comes to the team behind designing zones, they are the best of the best.
And opportunities to explore something new. I can't talk about the zones without mentioning the music and ambience that accompanies each one, from the grand sweeping vistas and capital cities to the smallest of grottos and forgotten caves. The howling of wolves in Elwyn Forest, the fierce sandstorms of Tenaris, the haunting themes of Tirisfal Glades, and so much more add nuance to the visuals and feelings you experience while questing. We all have memories associated with the music of Azeroth, but taking a step back from just nostalgia, the music in the zones stand on their own quite well today. Delving into the many dungeons and raids unlocks another layer to this world building, with these instances often serving as microcosms of the external environment, but with even more, or sometimes unexpected details to discover. Entering the Defias hideout to uncover a pirate ship, stepping inside the halls of Maradon and encountering strange glowing crystals, or finding a lush oasis hidden underneath the barrens are just a couple of the thousands of standout moments and curiosities you might experience on your journey. I need to take a detour to explain just how big of a deal some of this world design was at the time, and frankly how ahead of its time the game was as a payoff for its lengthy development. Compared to other MMOs of the time, which heavily relied on loading screens and many different maps to balance out pressure on both the server and client, WoW's custom engine meant the devs could optimize the graphics, the loading, everything for what they wanted to accomplish, a 3D version of Azeroth that was as interconnected and immersive as possible.
Yeah, there's no loading. Unless you were going from, like, you jumped on a ship or, teleported or something like that, or you got, in the game the first time, there was no loading. You didn't, if you went from, you get dropped in your starting area, right? Say you're in Durotar, right? Valley of Trials. As soon as you leave Valley of Trials, you don't get hit with a loading screen. No, you get to keep going. It's like, oh yeah, go to Senjin Village. Okay. And most people, other games, you'd be like, okay, you leave it, and then you're hit with a loading screen, and it loads the next area. No, you didn't have that. You just, okay, Senjin Village, here I come. You get to Senjin Village, you don't get hit with a loading screen. No, you just go in, you hand in the quest, and he's like, oh, thank you, man. So there was no loading times. You had this massive world to explore, no loading, unless you were teleporting or using Hearthstone, or going on one of the ships and was taking you from one point to another. You had no load time, so it made it feel like a world rather than just, pieces of the world. So I think that's what really drew in a lot of people as well, was that it made it feel like the world of Warcraft.
Except for traveling between the two continents, entering an instance, or using a mage portal, WoW has almost no loading screens, which was incredible in 2004. During a Games Expo where the team showed off flight paths for the first time, the other studios were in awe of the seamless exploration between zones. We might take this for granted nowadays, but it's just one more piece of the design that contributed to the game's novelty and success. With around 40 zones to explore, over a dozen dungeons, and a few raids to conquer, and hundreds of quests, all available at launch, the amount of content also cannot be understated. So we have this expansive, cohesive world filled with unique landscapes and music and quests, but what's the result of it all? The short answer: an unforgettable, rewarding journey that spans dozens, if not hundreds of hours. With so many games nowadays pushing for end-game content and rushing to max level, Classic WoW, or at least the original spirit of Classic WoW, is a reprieve from that mindset, a chance to slow down and take in the environment as you advance in your knowledge of the game.
Slow down. Life is to be savored. But yeah, absolutely. Nowadays, it's, oh yeah, I need to get to max level. I need to get the best gear right away and this and blah, blah, blah. Vanilla WoW, when it first launched, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. Even with when I started in BC, it wasn't like that. You weren't so worried about getting to max level. You just wanted to enjoy the experience because everything was still new. Obviously you knew that you needed better gear, but it wasn't that big of a deal for you at the time. You knew that, oh, well, there's stuff I can do at max level, but I'm not really in a hurry to get there. And the leveling experience was a lot slower. I think we can all remember the days when it took several hours just to gain a couple levels. Nowadays, 15 minutes goes by and you're already up to like level 20. So we remember when it was slower. It let you enjoy the experience. It let you go through each of these zones and perform the way the game intended. You go in, you collect you get the quest done, and then suddenly you're like, okay, well, I'm all done in this zone because I've done every single quest. And then you move on to the next zone. And then you'd hit a rut eventually, and you find yourself in Arathi Basin or Arathi Highlands. You know, just grinding raptors and spiders and whatever else because there's like no quests there, and because there was no real other place to go for your level. And I don't know, the Arathi Highlands had like no quests back then. But God, that was a miserable experience for me. Miserable experience. I had to collect raptor heads or something for them, and yeah, it took forever. Not only did they just not drop for whatever reason, they just took forever to respawn. So I remember being there for several hours just trying to do this one quest because they just didn't respawn that fast. But when it came to other zones that were actually cared for, because not every, Silithus, Arathi Highlands, Ajara, some zones were just, you really weren't meant to quest there. But other places, you get the full experience. You're reading all the dialogue and, reading the text rather, and you're really getting immersed into the world, and you understand the conflicts going on and the problems that are going on, and what needs to be done to solve them, and you're starting to feel for these characters, even though you know they're not real. And, you get to Crossroads, and Mancrick's going on about his wife and how he wants you to find her, and we find her dead, and then he loses it and starts making it his life mission to kill the Quillboars, and we see him in Cataclysm still going at it. You just become so immersed in this world, because it was a lot slower. It was a lot slower. Like I said, vanilla, it took you maybe several hours to gain just a couple levels. Nowadays, within 15 minutes, you're up to level 20. It's insane.
Getting to level 60 feels like something you've earned, not a chore to get out of the way before starting the real game. Questing is the main source of progressing and leveling from 1 to 60, but it's also the lens through which you can learn so much about the history and lands of Azeroth. While many zones have local quests that help you explore nearby places, Classic WoW is ambitious in how it weaves an interconnected web of quests across zones both near and far. It challenges the player to move and explore in a non-linear fashion, and through these explorations, combined with 8 races, 6 starting zones, and 9 classes that offer unique quests, your character undoubtedly traces a path across the map that is unique and meaningful to your particular choices. You might log in and expect to spend your day in Duskwood, only to end up soaring through the mountains of Cosmodan on a griffin, or a spontaneous Zeppelin ride might whisk you across the sea to the red canyons of Durotar. Again, you see, we're back to the world and how your character interacts with it. I think it's also important to note that not every stop on your journey warrants an objective or quest or item. Oftentimes, the smaller details in the lonelier corners of the map contribute to the impeccable atmosphere of the game and its world, and nothing more. There are places, creatures, NPCs, small things, thousands probably, that make the world feel more alive and mysterious in ways that don't relate at all to questing or leveling or gear or winning. They're just for fun. Remember when games could just be for fun? I could talk about all the awards WoW won when it came out, or how many players or guilds or raiders the game had, but that's not what makes it a masterpiece, at least not in my opinion. It's the game itself, and the meaning and experiences we can draw from it. Video games as a form of art is an idea that's become more popular recently, and I think we can look at WoW through this lens as well. Artists designed the textures in the map, writers made the quests and the stories that still resonate with us today, and developers helped code the whole thing so it could be displayed in this dynamic 3D space to millions around the world. And all that makes a lot more than just a product, something to sell. It's an experience, an adventure, a story, or as I said, really a lot of stories told all together across this massive environment, sometimes over the course of weeks, months, or even years. I've played WoW for over 13 years, and I'm certain there are still quests I haven't completed, secrets I haven't uncovered yet, and hidden details or stories that we can all still discover. And even if we had solved all the mysteries, worked out all the secrets, WoW would still be a timeless classic, I don't watch Lord of the Rings every year hoping for a whole new experience. I watch it because it's awesome and has stood the test of time as one of the most well-made trilogies ever. It's the same for classic WoW within the realm of gaming. 10, 15, 20 years later, it still has that appeal. And even when we take a break from Azeroth for school or work or family, it's never truly gone. It sticks with you. And that impact and those memories and the appreciation you get for what Blizzard created back then are what make classic WoW a true masterpiece. And of course, this is all said without even mentioning professions or PvP or gear or bosses or any of the other dozens of features in the game that add even more dimensions and ways to play. I'm an explorer, a lore guy, a finder of secrets, and I figured for this video I'd stick with my experiences within the game. With so much hype around Classic 2019, and again with the Classic Anniversary Edition happening right now, it's plain to see there is still an audience for this type of MMO, a pillar in gaming history that pushed the limits of what was possible and still draws in new fans to this day with its methodical pace, vibrant world, and unforgettable quirks and features. Thank you all so much for watching. This video kicks off a new series I'm producing for the holidays called the Season of Snowbound Stories. I hope you enjoy, so stay tuned. Stay warm, and until next time, may the Force be with you.
So yeah, I mean, everything he said was basically true, and he didn't even get into everything else. He was just kind of talking about the zones, the music, and how we were supposed to kind of feel going through. Like I said, it was just a different experience. It was, you get plopped into the game now, and, even as a new player, you feel the need. You look around at all the character, all the other players, and like, oh, well, I need to get to max level because I don't want to miss anything. But back then, you didn't have to worry about it, you know? You just kind of took your time. You enjoyed it. You read the text of everything. Um, maybe you were lucky to come across a chest or two out in the world, which nowadays there's just hidden treasures all over. They've just become basically since Mists of Pandaria kind of started it with having treasures all over. Whether it be a small coin or a hammer or whatever, all throughout Pandaria you could find stuff to pick up. And then Warlords kind of continued that. And it was also great because it gave you reason to look around because you got these items and they gave you a nice chunk of experience, like several quests worth of experience. And that's how I mostly leveled up in Warlords. I was just like, okay, well, I leveled up once, so after that, every other character I did, found the treasures and all that, and did the bonus objectives while doing dungeons. And that's how I leveled up. That's how I just got to max level after the first time. Same thing with Pandaria. Once I leveled up, I was like, okay, well, I know where all these treasures are, and they give a huge chunk of experience. Like I said, several quests worth. And some of them were very close proximity to each other. Like Jade Forest, you have like this little teapot or whatever sitting on a table, but then like a few feet away in the like a little pond, there's this coin that you can pick up. So most of them were very close to each other. And you could easily level quickly if you know where all of them were, especially, if you found them all the first time. Knowing all their locations, because some of them, like there's this, Jinyu staff in Jade Forest that you can find in the river, but it's not always in the same place. So you might, like, oh, it's not there, it must be further down. So as long as you know the area and you know where it could spawn. There was in Kunlai Summit, there was a spear or something over by the Yongle camps, and it could be different. The thing could be in a different spot all the time. If you go to a spot where you the spot where you normally would find it, doesn't mean it's going to be there. It could be a few feet away. But it was really great when it came to experience. And it kind of did give a sense of old WoW with the whole exploration and finding things and stuff like that. But I think Timeless Isle actually kind of got close to what classic WoW was. You know, exploration and connection with people. Uh, and that's why Timeless Isle is still so revered. You know, it had so much to do, treasures to find, bosses to fight, events going on, you know, and you had to communicate with people to get a lot of this stuff done. And that's just something that you really don't see in the game now. You don't really see people communicate. You know, you get put into a group and all that. You know, you're doing a dungeon and no one talks. No one talks. Um, but back then you kind of had to. If you wanted to do a dungeon, you had to sit there and be like, looking for group, dead mines, one need tank healer, then good to go. And you sat there for like 3 hours trying to find people. You'd get to the dungeon, the tank would leave, and you're like, okay, let me head back to the city and get another person. You know, people had to talk. People had to communicate. Leveling was a lot slower. It didn't just you didn't get huge XP buffs. You didn't get it took you several hours to gain a couple levels, but it was worth it because you were getting to experience the game. Um, you know, the music, the atmosphere, little things going on. Uh, it just really set the tone for what to expect. It set the mood for that zone. And while the magic of it has kind of faded away for a lot of the older people, we still have no problem saying that the zones still are gorgeous. And I find myself, same thing. If I just don't feel like questing in the zone anymore, because I'm like, okay, I'm tired of it, I just explore. I just explore. I want to see if there's anything lore hidden within the zone, any kind of nook or cave that I might have missed, just because I love the attention to detail in these zones. Um, so, but 20 years of WoW, 20 years of World of Warcraft. Um, so I guess the easiest question to ask would be, when did you start? Are you still playing, and what is your favorite zone? I've said numerous times, Crystal Song Forest for me is my favorite zone. Just, it's so gorgeous. Still nothing like it in the game. Still nothing like it. Um, but you know, so yeah, how long have you been playing? What's your favorite zone? And any particular memory you have over the last 20 years of playing WoW. Um, but yeah, that was Jedi Warlock, great YouTuber when it comes to this stuff. But that's gonna do for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. You guys.